All right.
What part of
How's it going?
what part of the
This is
country are
a
you?
Fig, right?
Yes, sir. What part of the country are you hailing from?
So I hail from North Carolina. Originally grew up in the
Yeah.
mountains there in Appalachia. Right now I
I
live
read.
in New Mexico here near Cannon Air Force Base.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I skimmed through your book just so I could have the flavor, and then I'm going to take my time and read it all.
Yeah,
How long did it take you to write that?
yeah.
Because that's impressive. How long did it take?
Honestly, man, about 6 months to get all the words on paper at least, and then it went to an editor after that, journalist named Holly McKay. About a month or two there, then she got me in contact with a publisher, Robbie Grayson. So I'd say about start to finish, like actually out on Amazon and all that, probably about 8 months, 7, 8 months, something like that.
That's a lot faster than I thought. That's impressive. That's
Yeah, I had
that's
a
a
lot
big
of.
undertaking.
Yeah, I had a lot of the words, man. I did the prolonged exposure treatment there, and a lot of that's writing that down, and then decided one day the lady convinced me to tell my story after telling me that over and over, and I finally decided to pull the trigger on it and got it out in the open, man. So
That's kind of how this podcast got started, believe it or not.
Right.
Yeah.
Stories.
Kept getting nagged. You got to tell these stories. You got to tell these stories. Well, fuck, everybody's got stories.
Right on.
You got to get all the various stories out there, including yours.
Right.
For sure.
Dizzy, welcome aboard, sir.
Yeah, glad to be here. Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. So we are live streaming to YouTube, Facebook, Rumble, and Twitter, formerly Twitter, now X.com. I'm going to set up my notes page. I'm going to share it with Fig. There was shared new note. And come on. All right. Is you boys ready?
Yes.
Good to go.
All right. Let's do it. Right. I'm going to note the time. And right banner. We're going to change that. I'm going to change the banner to Tito. Damn it. It's fighting me, man. All right. So drill bit goal. Everybody's here this morning. Fantastical. Okay. At the end of the music, sir, we're going to have you come in as briefed. Here we go.
Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
This here is a true story about crossing the pond.
When?
At night. In the world's
Really
smallest
loud, bro.
cockpit. On the tanker. Through the weather. Oh, and to the tanker crew who did that. Thanks a lot. We really appreciated that. I'm just kidding. No, I'm not. Well, there I was, crossing the pond, and you could see that I wasn't exactly fond.
Well, there I was in the air over Afghanistan, over an operation, getting ready to engage, and all of a sudden the drone guys started talking and jamming up the comms, draining everyone's SA, and then the aircraft commander says, "Hey, Dyer," he's like, "tell those dick shiners to get off the radio." So there was this basically laptop where we could be in the operation, like a chat room, and I was supposed to whisper it to them, but lo and behold, all caps, in front of the GFC, the JTAC, everybody watching, including God, "Hey, dick shiners, get off the radio." So we end up engaging, getting about approximately 5 EK, and then you hear Spectre 6-1 after your RTB, come see me. Full bird, Colonel. So yeah, there it was.
Right.
There you go. Did he get off the radio? That's the important thing. Greetings, everybody. Repeat here. You're listening to So There I Was. Where's my co-horse today?
I'm lucky enough to be home for a few more hours, and it is our pleasure and honor to welcome Tito to So There I Was. Welcome, Tito.
Glad to be here. Thank you for having me, guys.
Yeah, glad you could come on. So we heard about you. You're the author of a book called Moonchild, but you didn't start off writing the book in life. You started off in Western North Carolina, as I recall. And so how is it you wind up in the Air Force and with a story to write?
Yeah, so I graduated high school there May of 2000. And then, I get to the point in my life where, I get the typical dad talk where it's like, son, you got to get a job, go to college to get out. And, I had no direction with my life. And I ended up talking to a Navy recruiter, and he was talking about being on a boat for 6 months. And then an Army guy told me that the Army had a bigger Air Force than the Air Force. And at that point, I was like, you know what, I'm going to go to the Air Force and enjoy my TDY money and golf clubs. So decided to do that. And I originally came in as a weapons loader, a 2W1. I loaded the F-15 Strike Eagle there, Seymour Johnson.
Okay. And what'd you call that in the book?
Weapons loader.
Yeah. But in the book, you called it something.
Yeah, it was a lot of people call us load toads back then. And
Load toad,
like
that was it.
Basically, if you get on the jammer with the, yeah. Almost looks like a frog when we extend the arms of the jammer, stuff like that. So.
Okay. Right on. Well, I experienced something similar. I joined the Marine Corps and saw Eastern North Carolina myself. So how long were you there at Seymour Johnson?
Oh yeah. A Cherry Point there, huh?
Yeah. So
I was only there for like 3 years, and then I went to I did approximately a year in Korea there at Osan, and I think it's in the 36th, the Fiends over there. Then came back, and then went to Tyndall for a couple of years, and my total time as a loader was about 5 years. And so basically the way the timeline of my career, when I was a weapons loader for 5 years, then I was an Air Force firefighter for 5 years. My last called 11, I was what was then aerial gunner, but now it's called a special missions aviator.
Okay. So, I remember reading about the firefighter thing. So you were one of the guys that put on the baked potato suit and ran towards airplanes on fire? Or was that crash fire rescue?
Yeah, that was it. Put the wet stuff on the hot stuff, and it was a fire rescue. I did get my fire instructor, and then fire officer 1 and 2, stuff like that. And then there's a lot. To be honest with you, there's a lot of which is a good thing, sitting around in that life. And a lot of you're there for 24 hours in the firehouse, and you get bored. You learn all the good pranks. So I had pretty good arsenal of that before I went. Started deploying on the gunship as a gunner years later. So.
Okay.
So you had a little character before you became a crewman on a gunship. That probably served you well.
Yeah. Oh yeah. The firehouse definitely taught me some like I said, good pranks, and just the camaraderie of it all. And when it's time to work, it's time to work. So that sort of gave me that mentality. And then, long story short, I was home on leave actually, and I was in the firehouse, or I was just, left the firehouse, Charleston, drove home to North Carolina there, and I was at a pizza place with some kids or my friends, and stuff like that. And we're all still real young. And basically I look out and I realize, I see those same cracks in the road. I get there a little bit in the book, and, I realized at that point, man, I'm really sitting on the sideline in this war on terror. And then, I don't want to leave cracks, man. I want to leave, fucking craters, man. So at that point, I got back to the firehouse, and there was a book there by Dick Couch, and the beginning of that book, it has the Isaiah 6:8, the send me verse. And at that point, I never looked back, man. I joined the mighty 16th Special Operations Squadron, got to fly on the H model Spectre gunship, and we definitely left, more than craters at that point. So,
well, what was that process like, Tito? Going from firefighter to AC gunship air crewman. Was that how did you affect that change? Did you apply? I mean, did you see an opening?
Yeah, so I knew I was going from Yeah, back then it was the old the NCO Corp training program, and it's rare, I guess, in the Air Force you get to retrain even, especially twice, but there was basically an opening for an aero gunner back then. It was 1 Alpha 7 was the AFSC, or what you guys may call MOS. And then I knew that it would probably lead me to cannon, and it'd probably lead me to the gunships. And it was back then, it was either that, the rescue helicopter, or the CB-22 was just sort of getting started. as a SMA. And then I jumped on the aero gunner. Then it pretty much went through basic aero gunner training there at San Antonio, Medina Annex, and then went to, followed by survival school, water survival. And then basically at that point I get to Cannon, which was then the 551st Special Operations Training Squadron, and then started my, initial qualification training as a gunner. And then started there, checked out about 3 or 4 months, and then within a week I was deployed in Afghanistan. So.
Nice. I think Fig started to touch on it earlier. Can you offer up any way that your initial 2 tours of duty as a load toad and or a firefighter, how did that make you a better air crewman on the gunship?
Yeah, I would say that as air gunners, we're very checklist oriented, checklist driven, as air crew in general. And then especially as the weapons, the weapons used to be almost a feeder specialty code to get into aero gunner back then. And then it's following checklist steps, using it as a guide, not a crutch, I guess you'd say. And then, memorizing everything, but above all, like being safe with explosives, that was huge for, especially when you start handling 105 rounds, hundreds of them at a time, And as far as the firefighting thing, it definitely got me, I guess, in physical shape back then. And yeah, and it, I guess in an indirect way later on when I went to rescue, I'd always remember the fact it's one of those jobs, if you're working, someone's having, their worst day or possibly last day of their life. So something you never really want to have to do. But if that, if your number's called and their number's called, you want to be the guy going, So it gave me that mentality going into that.
Right. Okay. Oh, very cool. What was the most difficult part about becoming an aero gunner?
I would say I failed the dunker the first time. If you guys ever been to the dunker, basically you're in this fuselage of an aircraft and it goes underwater and you're upside down blindfold. Yeah. So I ended up failing that the first time, man. And usually they don't give the steer guys don't give second chances with that. And I guess I had a decent enough attitude to where they gave me a second chance. And then, I got to work with the steer guy for a week, man. And by the time he was done with me, man, I felt like, I could almost teach that course. But I failed that, man. And then, but I got a chance to go back. I redid it, flying colors past that. And then I guess the difficulty as far as the actual aero gunner part is just the amount of knowledge, on the gunship that I knew when I first checked out was so much higher than if I'd have studied that hard for anything else, I would be a doctor, right? It was had that in depth, your technical orders, your checklists, your tactics and procedures. It was just to the point where it was second nature. Yeah.
Okay. So are you schooled up on a lot of the aircraft systems as well, in addition to the weaponry on board? And let me also ask you to describe exactly what the gunship is. For those that don't know what the Spectre is, can you describe what that airplane is and all the weaponry on board? And then tell us whether you needed to know aircraft systems as well.
Yeah, so back then was what was traditional aero gunner. You were basically your meat and potatoes of your knowledge was your 40 mil Bofors cannon and your 105 howitzers for the H model. I mean, we didn't even pressurize, man. That's how old that was. There was tail numbers like 6, 9, and 7 tubes. Same structure of a skeleton that flew in Vietnam. You're flying on that, right? So if we weren't leaking, we weren't flying type thing. But basically, where a gunner made his money on the gunship was basically clearing out those gun malfunctions, recognizing them, getting the gun back online. And I know that sounds simple enough, but you could imagine a JTAC getting shot at and the intensity of his voice. And if you can't figure out what's wrong with your gun because you didn't study your weapons enough, then that's a bad feeling, bad spot to be in. As far as the gunship as a whole, the mission is, basically we provide close air support for those mostly unconventional forces. You're talking about your SEAL teams, your Green Berets, your Rangers. Worked with supported special operators from all over the world, and basically you take a lot of pride in being those guys' lifeline. And
sure,
there's a lot of letters floating around that squad member. Those guys wrote, "Hey, thanks, to the gunship, and you guys have to go home and see my baby girl," right? Stuff like that, and it's something you never get used to.
Yeah, boy, that's got to be a good feeling, though. Did you guys do any of the inserts too? Did they ride with you? You insert them and then support them, or will you just support usually?
Yeah, as far as the gunship goes, no, we didn't do any infill or exfills or anything like that. What we would do was basically we would scan the LZs before, if pretty much anytime there was a direct action type thing going on the ground, right? Like we would be overhead and sparkle the HLZ, make sure it's clean and clear bad guys, so those guys could land usually from the 160th or whatnot, and then they would infill to the X or whatever the case may be, and go do the work, and we'd be there as instruments, I guess you would say.
Okay.
Hey, Tito, you just used a term that I know what you're saying, and repeat does, but I don't think we have this defined yet. So could you tell us what sparkle? Tell our listeners what sparkle means. You sparkle the LZ.
Yeah. So basically, you have your night vision goggles. You're flying with them as well as the guys on the ground. Definitely have them on, right? And basically, it's like an IR laser, infrared laser that's going down to this area that's steady, right? And only we could see it with MBGs, assuming the bad guys don't have MBGs. But it basically, if you have to get the JTACs or the ground, those operators on the ground's eyes towards something really fast, you could sparkle it. And also, a lot of times it clears up, like when you're about to engage something, if there's any uncertainty, the JTAC has an IR pointer, and we could match that and then shoot as well to make sure we were, engaging the right target there.
Perfect. Thank you.
Nice. Yeah.
Hey, before we get too far down range, I got a couple other questions. The guns. Do you guys clean the guns, or is that a maintenance function on the aircraft?
That's a maintenance, a weapons function. Actually, the guys, when we would land, they would what you call B-pull it, and they had this like big chimney type brush, man, like a Q-tip. They stick in the 105, twist it, and all kinds of cleaning that went on right after we landed. And all that really depended on how much we shot, and how much soot and carbon stuff like that was built up.
In my last question related to this kind of theme, in training or when you're in garrison and you're training for proficiency, do you guys pilots, we have simulator training. Do aerial gunner, do you have a gun simulator? So
on gunships we did not, but when I went to later on in my career, I went to the Paylock helicopters. We had the the minigun mounted in the simulator there, and it was unlimited ammo. It was actually pretty fun. But yeah, for the 60s we did. For gunships we did not. Long story short, so yeah.
Nice. Okay, Nintendo unlimited refills. Beautiful.
Love it. All right, thanks.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
No problem.
Oh man, and I think we may have gotten a show title there a minute or two ago too, Fig. If we ain't leaking, we ain't flying. So
I wrote that down too. I thought that was pretty good.
I like it. So all right, in the book you talk about how you get to go out on your missions on the gunship.
Yeah, it's one of those things you're getting ready to take off.
Oh, okay. So let me explain to people here. Correct. I can take out 99% of the delay. We've got about a 6-second delay here that we're contending with over the internet. We're not sure why. We've tried reconnecting before the show, and we're still dealing with that. But so we'll go back to if we ain't leaking, we ain't flying, and then I'll ask you to talk about the missions that you don't shoot on every mission.
Sure. Yeah. So the term if we weren't leaking, we weren't flying. Specifically with the H model there, like I was getting at earlier. Your Vietnam number, like tail numbers, like 6972. I remember going to the aileron actuator, man, and there was so many drips per minute that was considered legal. As far as maintenance would go, and I carried a red rag with me, man, for the hydraulic fluid. And if there's a tick going on, man, it's leaking, we're flying. I'm happy, man. It's as backwards as that sounds, but granted there is a reality limit to that, right? Like this spraying, we're not going to take it, but yeah, we always lean forward, especially downrange, getting that gray area, operating that a lot to get rounds out for those guys. So
sure. And then Dizzy in our chat room asks, how many rounds were you carrying on that airplane?
So the H model we had back then, we had 100 high explosive, the PG-44 for the 105 millimeter, and then we had 25 proximity rounds, which at that point, because you could basically it'll recognize when it gets above the intended target, then shoot out a bunch of frag. I think it's like 14,000 22 caliber. So if you have guys out in the open, it would shred them. Well, you could take out a lot at one time with that. And then see, back then I think it was 264 the 40 mil Bofors cannon. We had a little rotational rack we used, and what was cool about the 40 mil, man, if you look on the back of it, it had CC, and a lot of the gunner gee whiz was like, hey, what does that stand for? And it was Christ Corporation. And then you would pop off the top of your rounds, man, and they would say like 1947 somewhere in Tennessee, where they,
Whoa,
so the same rounds that were intended for for the Navy anti-aircraft, the Bofors, right? We were hanging now on the side of a C-130, and we were shooting those 40 mil out of the guys. So.
That's
Wow.
awesome.
Holy smokes. And I'm trying to think.
Yeah,
So the 105
it's changed
is
a lot,
little
though, man.
over, oh, go ahead.
Yeah. So, but this day and age, man, it's really like
Repeat. I'm not getting any of that.
like a bomb
Oh,
truck,
yeah,
And the 30 mil, call it 1,200 carry.
Okay. Yeah, I hate to do this.
It's gotten a lot
hang on.
bigger as far as our payload
Yeah,
capacity.
Hey,
Tito, I hate to do this. I think we're going to have to abort here. This is, it's gotten to the point where we're 12, 15 seconds delays, and you just went 30 seconds without a word or a movement in your picture. We didn't get a thing out of that. So we're going to have to reattack when we can get a better, connection. I don't know what's going on. I think it's internet on your end, because Fig and I seem to be able to talk back and forth without delay, but, let's folks, I'm sorry about this. I'm going to end the stream right here. We're going to find a way to reattack this when we can do it. And
apologies, guys. I got all bars, so I'm not sure why this is happening, to be honest.
Take care, everyone.